and welcome to another episode of Café 21. I'm your host, Ross Crawford, and in the hot seat today, we have another very special guest. Our guest today is an experienced corporate solicitor who specialises in advising entrepreneurs with their businesses, particularly in tech and finance industries. He's also a dual qualified solicitor in England and Wales, as well as Australia. So welcome to the hot seat, Bryan Shaw. How are you, Bryan?
Hi, Ross. Good to be here.
Yeah, smashing. Good to have you. So you've been briefed. You know the drill. It's 3 questions, 3 answers. Are you ready?
Sure.
Brilliant. So first of all, I've given you your titles. I've explained a little bit what you do, but there's no better than hearing it from the horse's mouth himself. So explain a little more to the audience what you do on a day-to-day basis as an advisor to entrepreneurs on their businesses.
Thanks, Ross. Yes, not a problem. As you mentioned, I'm a partner at a law firm called MBM Commercial. I'm based in London, and primarily we help companies or founders raise capital and also to buy and sell businesses. So, as you mentioned, helping entrepreneurs on their fundraising journey is an important part of the process. So, I help on negotiating term sheets, talking to investors, talking about strategy, negotiating terms of investment. All the way through from the very early rounds, from what's known as founders, friends and family rounds through to venture capital funds, and ultimately, hopefully, onto an exit. That's the end goal. When you ask me about day to day, as I said, we are a law firm, so dealing with the law is something that we deal with every day. But what really I'm passionate about is meeting people and meeting entrepreneurs, and really being able to add value to help them on that journey. Through from idea stage through to developing the product. As you mentioned, we're working with a lot of entrepreneurs in the tech and fintech space at the moment, and seeing that come to fruition into a business expansion, throughout the UK and then globally. So that's very exciting for me.
Basically all the very tricky things that somebody, when they have a bright idea of starting a business, they don't know they're going to have to deal with. That's where you guys kind of step in.
Exactly right. It's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And I really am passionate about helping those filling those gaps for those entrepreneurs.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully you'll be able to help some of our viewers in the future. Now, as you say, with MBM Commercial, entrepreneurial kind of people with their businesses, you kind of help businesses at every step of the way, wherever possible. So as a startup, if they're looking to scale up, or even potentially going global if everything's really gone well for them. So how important is it for these entrepreneurs to kind of take a step back and assess where their business is on this path, so they can kind of plan the next steps and set their goals accordingly?
No, absolutely. Goal setting is absolutely crucial and critical for these companies, and particularly so when you're talking to investors. Investors like to see that you've had some goals, you've set some targets, and that you've achieved those targets. They like to see the trajectory. You're a startup. They don't expect you to have revenue from day zero, but they expect you to develop, to think about it, to say, right, in 6 months' time, 12 months, 18 months, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to achieve it. And set your goals, realistic and achievable goals. You might say, within 6 months, I want what's called an MVP, minimal viable product. And then in 12 months, maybe I'll have a first customer, or maybe I'll have a pilot. And then in 18 months, I want to have 5 customers, or I want to achieve, £1,000 revenue, whatever it is. And so that way, when you do go out to investors, you can say, look, goals, I've achieved these, I've smashed these goals, and I need some funding to really, take it to the next level. So goal setting is absolutely important, but, they really do need to be, measurable and achievable goals.
Do you have any practical advice on that? Is it as simple as, having a whiteboard, setting out your dreams, maybe doing a bit of a mind map, or having a meeting, that kind of thing?
Well, I guess some advice would be, talk to others in the industry, talk to peers. A lot of co-working spaces out there right now. Gather as much knowledge as you can. There is a lot of free events, virtual and in-person events, where you can listen to others who have been in similar positions to yourselves. and kind of benchmark yourself against them. Say, oh, okay, right. So when they were at my level, this is what they were doing. I think we should be doing something similar. So that would be some tips. And again, talk to friends and family. Always have good to be a sounding board. And similar to us, yes, we're a law firm, but we do more than just the law. And just come and so many times we have clients just, hey, Bryan, what do you think about this? And it's not necessarily a legal question. It's more just a sounding board. Just that experience. Say, well, actually, that's a really good idea. Or have you thought about maybe pivoting and doing something else? Or so always having that experienced head is always a good thing to have for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, certainly, indeed. It's a tricky world and a competitive world out there. So using your contacts, as you say, and trying to talk to people in the industry and benchmarking yourself is always a good strategy. Now, finally, your last question. So funding for startups is almost as important as the idea of the business itself, right? If you don't have somebody to back you and support you on your journey financially, it's very tricky to, get going in the first place. Do you have any ideas for a business owner on how they can begin their fundraising journey, have those difficult conversations with people, and basically how they can gain support financially for their business idea that they can be so passionate about?
No, definitely. I think the important thing there is to think about, there are different levels of finance and what I like to call the ladder of finance. So when you're an early, young company, young entrepreneur, you're at what's known as the friends and family round. I mentioned earlier in the podcast. It's often known as the triple F, friends, family, and fools, because the odds are, it is a risky investment at that stage. So at that level is what's known as pre-seed round. And to get your foot in the door, just knock on as many doors as you can, tap up your friends, your family, because they're the people that will believe in you at that very early days. You then move on to seed round, where what's known as angel investors, and there are these tax incentives called EIS you may have heard of, and then they can invest. Again, it's all about building your network. And as you go up the ladder, you then have venture capital funds, private equity funds, and but early days, it's all about your network. It doesn't matter what level you're on; it's all about your network. And the more people that the more events you go to, the more virtual hands you shake these days, the more you increase your chances of finding an investor or investors that are likely to like what you're doing, and that would want to and the other thing to think about is you need to build trust, and that takes time. These are third parties that you haven't met before, and so you need to build that trust, and that's over time. Going for coffee or going for a beer or whatever it is, going to football, whatever, just to build that rapport. Because investors will want to invest in you personally. Your business, it needs to have traction. It needs to be a good business, but ultimately, if you don't build up that rapport with the investor, they won't invest in you. So build your network. As I said before, knowledge and research. Because you may get some terms and someone investing in you, but the terms of that investment might be terrible. So it's not just looking at the headline figure. It's looking what's underneath the hood, and really understanding what they want. I've had various stories where companies say, I've got this £2 million coming in, fantastic. Or, we can really build the business, and you look at it. Well, no, they basically control this business. And you want that freedom to still build what you want to build. So you always need to be careful what's in the fine print. And also, as I said, they really do invest in you, and so that's about building your own good team as well. It's always a good idea to have a co-founder. I find it's very difficult to do things on your own. So find a good business partner and go out as a team together. And one last tip is around the amount to raise. Going back to the goal setting, raise just enough or a little bit more to achieve that particular goal. You don't want to raise too much, because then you'll be diluted by too much, and you don't want. And the worst though is to not raise enough, because it does take time to do the next round, and your run rate, your cash burn will be too high, and before you know it, you'll be out of money. So raise just enough or a little bit more than just enough.
Yeah, some brilliant advice there. I'm sure there's going to be people taking that advice away. Some top line stuff, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to dive in a little bit more in detail, because clearly you know your stuff and very experienced in this field. But that's all we have time for today. Short and sweet. So thank you very much, Bryan, for sitting in the hot seat today, and we wish you well for the future here at STGC.
Great, thanks, Ross.